It's a pleasure having you here on Joy NewsPrime this evening. Now, there are fresh damning allegations by the special prosecutor against former Sanitation Minister Cecilia Dapaah as the OSP goes on the offensive in the latest attempt to confirm the seizure of suspected tainted properties belonging to Cecilia Dapaah. You may recall the OSP seized millions of cash from the former minister and ordered the freezing of some bank accounts which had transactions of over 40 million cedis in total. An Accra High Court refused to confirm the seizures and freezing order and directed the OSP to return the amount to Cecilia Dapaah. Now, the special prosecutor complied, but is back in court seeking to get the seizure confirmed. Now, exclusive copies of documents filed in court by the OSP reveal the former minister allegedly has millions of cedis, which the OSP says she could not prove the source, including fresh allegations that an account belonging to the dead brother of the former minister was still sending money to Cecilia Dapaah's account. Now, I have been joined by my colleague Elton Brobe of our political desk for more on this particular development. Now, Elton, tell us, according to the document, there are several revelations. Could you please share with us the details of recent transactions that occurred in the former minister's account, according to the OSP?
Right. So, Carlos, what we know already, remember that some time back, the OSP undertook some searches in the home of Madam Cecilia Dapaah, the former Minister for Water and Sanitation, in separate places, cantonments, Abelempe, and of course, Tesano. Now, it came to light that the OSP discovered some money. And then, in furtherance, the OSP took steps to seize the amount of money and also froze the accounts of Madam Cecilia Dapaah, multiple bank accounts in two different banks.
Okay.
And then the matter was taken to court, and then the outcome, just like you alluded to. Now, the OSP took another step, and what we are learning this evening is, of course, the new information that is coming through. Now, the OSP says that criminal intelligence suggested that the first respondent in this case is the Minister of Sanitation, Madam Cecilia Dapaah, former, was engaged in undisclosed and undeclared real estate business in which she obscured and concealed the transactions by employing the use of aliases to avoid detection of the said amount, now of the actual ownership of the business and properties, whilst cleverly receiving the proceeds of the transaction in their bank accounts and investment. Now, it goes on to give an example.
Okay.
The OSP says that, for example, the first respondent, Cecilia Dapaah, sold a Snett Boteman estate flat number BTOD BK4 under the name of Nana Ode. Indeed, the OSP says that the first respondent appended her signature on all relevant correspondence with the buyer under the name of Nana Ode. Concerning the payment, first respondent, through her agent, gave the buyer her bank account. It was only at the point of payment at the bank that the agent of the first respondent revealed to the buyer that the true identity of Nana Ode was in fact the first respondent, Madam Cecilia Dapaah, onto whose account payment of purchase price of the 117,000 was to be made and effected. And the OSP attaches exhibit to back this claim regarding the first respondent, Nana Ode, to the courts, and the expectation is that the court will consider all of these, new revelations that have been put forth by the OSP in granting the confirmation to further hold on to the bank accounts and the seized money.
All right. So, what did the OSP find also regarding money in Cecilia Dapaah's residence, for instance?
So, in the paragraph provided by the OSP, it says that there was a deposit of they retrieved some $800,000 from the home of Madam Cecilia Dapaah. Now, Madam Cecilia Dapaah, in her statement to the OSP, says that the money belonged to her deceased brother. Now, what is instructive is that there is an account in the name of this deceased brother, and according to OSP, between late 2022 and then around March of 2023, there were some transactions from the deceased brother's account to Madam Cecilia Dapaah's bank accounts. And this is the second transfer happened at the time the brother was dead. Now, the OSP's analysis conducted on the first responder bank accounts reviewed the following payment transactions into the account, which are unsupported by the first responder disclosed lawful income. There is a deposit of $130,000 by the first respondent on the 22nd of November 2016, a transfer of an amount of $100,000 by Madam Cecilia Dapaah on 29th June 2023. A copy of the statement on the said account has also been attached. Analysis of the first respondent bank account reviewed the following transactions unsupported by first respondent disclosed lawful income. There is 75,000 Ghana cedis, there's 54,000 Ghana cedis, and there is some 350,000 Ghana cedis. And within a period of 5 months, precisely from the 16th of August 2022 to January 2023, there's been 300,000, 350, and 650,000 Ghana cedis into separate accounts belonging to Madam Cecilia Dapaah. And then on the basis of the foregoing, the special prosecutor is asking the court to confirm the seizure of the suspected tainted currency and the freezing order in pursuant of Section 32 of the Act establishing the Office of the Special Prosecutor. We are told that this motion will be moved on the 18th of October 2023.
All right. Thank you so much, Elton, for speaking to us here, giving us all those details. Now, we'll move on to Martin Pebo. He's a legal practitioner, and he joins via Zoom with the legalities of all of these on this particular Cecilia Dapaah issue. Now, based on the document, the OSP has actually provided fresh evidence detailing what they have really been looking at. I want to know, how do these new details impact the case in court?
Yeah, Carlos, so they make the case extremely strong. Yes, extremely strong, because you remember the first time OSP went, there weren't that much documentation. And, there were times that the judge had to make some comments that he didn't find any investigations made by the OSP. So now documents have been attached. They are answering the queries that the judge raised. So the documents are very, very important. Very important. Like we say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So in the first application, the OSP will say, I'm investigating, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. The judge said he hadn't seen. So now that the documents have been attached, the bank statements, the caution statements of the Madame Dapaah, she has several statements. The husband's statements, the niece, all those other things, they come together to make the case extremely strong. So that's the right thing to do.
So the defense counsel for Cecilia Dapaah, for instance, what should they be thinking doing if they still want to go ahead and argue their case out?
Hey, Carlos, that's interesting. Wow. I mean, because of my bias that I want this case done, we want to win as a public. I mean, that's the state of Ghana. We want to protect the public purse. I haven't thought seriously how she can scale this hurdle. It's extremely tight. It's extremely tight. Really, because you see, it's one thing. The law says that, look, if we find money with you and you cannot explain the source, that's if the money is not your income, inheritance, loan, or a gift, then it's unexplained wealth. That's Article 286, Clause 4, right? Then you come to the OSP law. You see the currency seizure notes. The application says they've served there. She should explain. And through application, they are saying that she can't explain the source of the money. So this one really, the best thing usually lawyers do. Now I see I can give you one of the secrets.
All right.
The best that we do is that you attempt to delay the trial. So when you go, you ask for adjournment, an adjournment, an adjournment. Yeah, so that like you postpone the doomsday. That's the best. But this one, there are too many accusations to scale it.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Counsel. We really appreciate your time. But away from that story, some 68 non-citizens and 211 persons identified as minors have been apprehended across various districts in the Ashanti region for attempting to participate in the ongoing limited voters registration exercise. The non-Ghanaians were arrested after officials interrogated their nationality while the minors were identified after further scrutiny by EC officials. Now, the Ashanti Regional Director of the Electoral Commission, Benjamin Banobeo, says there are measures to identify ineligible voters or persons attempting to disrupt smooth registration exercise. My colleague Nana Boachi Iadom has the rest of the story.
After day 7 of the limited voters registration exercise across the country, the Ashanti region has recorded 370 challenges at various districts. Though the Electoral Commission has put in place measures to ensure a transparent registration process, it is still faced with the challenge of non-citizens and minors attempting to register. Ashanti Regional EC Director Benjamin Banobeo says the Commission has apprehended 68 non-citizens and 211 minors who tried to engage in the registration exercise.
We have gotten a total of 370 challenge cases. Yeah, 211 were challenged because they said they were underage, 68 non-citizen, 90 non-resident, and 1 person was challenged as being on sound mind. And I understand some people have been given out to the police on these issues.
Mr. Banobeo says the Commission is resolute in ensuring suspected ineligible applicants are challenged for a smooth process.
You see, we have put in place some measures so that the process will be smooth, will be peaceful, and then people can also come out to challenge those they deem to be unqualified. When somebody comes to the center to register, we have the political party agents there, we have our own officials there, we have people who are also coming to register. You see, anyone who is qualified to be registered as a voter, it is not somebody who has registered, who is qualified to be registered as a voter, can object to the registration of any person. I mean, can challenge, that's the right way, can challenge the registration of any person he or she deems to be unqualified. Either the person is a non-Ghanaian, a non-citizen, or he doesn't stay in the electorate area that he claims to be, or he's underage, and things like that. This is the process. All that you need to do is to approach the registration officer and ask that you need a challenge form which shall be issued to you, and then you can put in your challenge.
Meanwhile, the Ashanti region has so far registered over 36,300 applicants.
Now, issues of non-Ghanaians and minors participating in the ongoing limited voters registration exercise are rampant in the Ashanti region, but the EC says it remains committed in ensuring that such issues do not repeat in the coming days. For Joy News, my name is Nana Boachi Yadom, Kumasi.
Away from the story, the opposition NDC in Parliament have vowed to ensure that the proposed constitutional instrument does not see a day of light. Now, does that mean that the proposed CI makes Ghana card the sole identity card for electoral matters? We'll take a look at what they have been saying.
As you are all aware, the Commission prepared a draft CI for continuous registration in all district offices nationwide. This initiative started last year, and the registration we were envisaging under the draft CI was for a sustained long-term basis. Indeed, had the CI passed, we would have had some 6 months this year to register voters at any time of their choice. And I like to repeat it, that had the CI passed, we would have had some 6 months to register voters at any time of their choice in our district offices throughout the country. In this regard, ladies and gentlemen, our 2023 budget and work plan were prepared along those lines. Our 2023 work plan and budget was based on a continuous registration of voters in our district offices nationwide. We did not factor electoral area registration in our 2023 work plan and budget. Hence, our adoption of this method in line with our budget and our work plan, as well as our long-term plan and vision.
But reacting to the claims of the EC boss, minority spokesperson on constitutional and legal affairs, Bernard Ahiafo, explained that the minority will not soften its stance on the CI and will not allow it to go through until the EC amends the proposal to include a guarantor system.
Percentage of Ghanaians have Ghana card, let alone to talk about those who will turn 18 and those who have not been registered as voters. So we realize that the new CI will be causing more harm to Ghanaians than good. There is nothing useful in the new CI. The only thing being introduced by the new CI, I maintain, is the amendment to Regulation 1 to limit the source documents, which were 3, in line with the Supreme Court decision in the case of Abu Ramadan. He has the constitutional right. He has the discretion to determine the number of days, number of weeks, and number of months that a continuous registration exercise is to be conducted. So her inability to do it for a longer period cannot be attributed to the non-passage of the new CI. That, I maintain, is an intellectual dishonesty. And secondly, we parliamentarians do not prepare budget for the EC, but we approve budget for the EC. If the EC were to be saying that he has prepared budget to conduct limited registration in an electoral area basis, that Parliament has not given an approval, that he has a point. But without saying so, then I do not think Parliament of the Republic of Ghana stands to be blamed for the inability of Madam Mensa, the chairperson of the EC, to conduct limited registration based on electoral areas. Why? Parliament will not let it pass. So long as it limits the source document to only Ghana card, Parliament must not let this CI pass.
Now, Pressure Group Fix the Country movement has set in motion an unprecedented move to stage a 3-day non-stop protest at the seat of government, Jubilee House. The organizers say the demonstration, dubbed Occupy Jilobi House, scheduled to take place from Thursday to Saturday, is aimed at protesting against what they say is corruption, high cost of living, and the mismanagement of the economy. According to the group, the protest at the seat of government is also to deepen Ghana's democracy at a time when coups have become rampant in Africa.
And help us to resist oppressors' rule with all our will and mind forevermore.
Pressure Group Fix the Country movement, in its efforts to hold government accountable, has announced plans to stage a 3-day non-stop demonstration. The protests, the group says, will be at the Jubilee House for 3 days and 3 nights. According to the movement, the demonstration is also an exercise of their democratic right to put the government on its toes. Convener of the movement, Oliver Baka-Vomao, says all the necessary provisions have been made for the protest, which will start on Thursday, the 21st of September to the 23rd of September.
Ghanaians will be coming out on 21st to Saturday the 23rd. We have put in place every logistical arrangements that we can. For those who want to spend the night over, we are arranging for tents to be mounted. We are arranging for mosquito nets to be provided for people to sleep over, and mattresses as well for people to stay over. The idea is to occupy the space for 3 days continuous. So it's not open in the morning, close and go home and come.
Member of the communications team, Solomon Wise, also justified the need for the protest.
Youth unemployment has cast a shadow over our nation, robbing our youth talent of the opportunity to contribute to the development of our country. Corruption has seeped into every level of our society and eroding trust and hindering progress. We demand accountability, transparency, and an end to the impunity that has allowed corruption to flourish.
The 3 days and 3 nights protest, the group says, will be full of activities. Director of Communications for the movement, Shafa Musa, enumerated some of the activities protesters will undertake.
We expect that there will be liberation songs, a musical tribute to the spirit of liberation and change, Jama hooting at presidency, a symbolic expression of our call for accountability, speeches, inspirational addresses emphasizing the need for change and accountability in Ghana, Panlogo and Bobobo drumming, a celebration of Ghana's rich musical heritage, dancing, an opportunity for attendees to join in the cultural festivities, keep fit exercise, board games, Ludo, cards, Monopoly, or Wari.
Oliver Bakavomawo stressed that the protest is a peaceful one and therefore warned individuals planning to cause chaos to ward off.
We are engaged in what is a peaceful demonstration. The freedom of assembly and the right to protest is constitutionally guaranteed to every citizen. This is an activity that we take on and the right to exercise and reminder of what we have gotten to as a society. It is not an invitation for chaos. We will make sure that every person who is coming there will be protected.
The group mentioned that they will continue to mount pressure on the government to prioritize the welfare of all Ghanaians.
Now, in a recent report based on data from the 2022 Annual Household Income and Expenditure Survey by the Ghana Statistical Service, it has been revealed that the gender wage gap remains above 34%. The study shows that among paid workers, women earn a startling 34.2% less than their male counterpart. This wage gap was calculated by factoring in various elements such as age, work experience, education level, employment sector, and geographical factors, among others. My colleague Joy News' Isaac Kofi Ejay has been studying the data and has come through with the following report.
There's a long-standing effort towards the achievement of equal pay for work of equal value. Globally, women are paid less than men, with a gender pay gap estimated around 20%. In Ghana, the Statistical Service estimates this gender pay gap at 34.2%, surpassing the global average of 20%. Let's break down these figures with this scenario. The 34.2% pay gap means in a case where a man earns 5,000 cedis, a woman is paid about 3,300 cedis for the same work, which is a whopping 1,700 cedis less than what her male counterpart earns. At a disaggregated level, women in Ghana with tertiary education or higher degrees still earn 12.7% less than men with the same level of education. However, the gap was most profound among those with basic education, 60.1%, or no education, 54.0%. When employment sectors were compared, the private informal sector displayed the widest gap, where women earn a staggering 58.7% less than men. It means for the same work, while a man earns 5,000 cedis, a woman is paid only 58.7% of it, which is a little above 2,900 cedis. The private formal sector also exhibited a substantial gap of 29.9%, while the public sector had the smallest disparity, with women earning 10.5% less than men. For individuals aged 36 to 60, women were paid 33.4% less than their male counterpart, highlighting a stark wage differential. This disparity was nearly 3 percentage points higher than the gap observed in the age group of 15 to 35, where women earn 30.7% less than men. Isaac Kofi reporting for Joy News.
You're still watching Joy News Prime with me, Carlos Caloni. We'll take a break, we'll return with more. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching Joy News Prime. Now, the Ghana Association of Banks is piling more pressure on government to take cut on expenditure instead of burdening bondholders. Now, this follows government reopening of the domestic exchange, seeking to restructure an additional 12.9 billion cedis. The Ministry of Finance has, through a statement, extended invitation to bondholders who did not partake in the previous DDEP to submit their bonds by Friday for another round of restructuring. Speaking on PM Express on Monday, Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana Association of Banks, John Iwa, called on government to take the hit this time around?
It's important that the program succeeds, because otherwise those of us who have already entered, then we'll have a crisis on our hands, and as a country, it will not be very good on us as a country generally, that we enter into a debt operations program where we agree specific covenants with investors. Investors have paid the price by subscribing, and at the end of it, there is a failure of a sort. So I'm beginning to put a lot of mileage on the intelligence that we have gathered, that there are willing investors who really want to opt into the program. But of course, that window closed at some stage, and reopening it gives them opportunity to now perhaps come under the program. And the more we have such events happening, that leads us into that end game, the better it is for all of us. But the thing is, it's two sides to the coin. As we are looking at the debt operations, I heard Professor Bobkin also talking about particularly on the expenditure and the government side of things. I mean, both sides must move. So we are also hopeful that as bondholders are taking this serious pill, that side where we are critically looking at our expenditure pattern as a country, to also contribute to plug in whatever fiscal
you haven't seen that enough yet. I remember that was part of the assurances that convinced everybody else who wanted to participate, including the banks who carried a bit of the burden. You're saying that
But Chief Director of the Finance Ministry, Ifa Mens, has said it will be difficult for government to cut down on expenditure. Speaking at the Graphic Business Stanbic Bank breakfast meeting, the Chief Director said mounting employment pressure makes it difficult for government to cut back on expenditure, especially when revenue generation is challenging due to tax evasion.
When we talk about government expenditures, the biggest expenditure is compensation. How do you reduce compensation? In other countries, when they're in crisis, they lay people off. They lay workers off. In fact, in some jurisdictions, they lay policemen off. They lay teachers off. Here in our country, we haven't laid anyone off. Indeed, that is more of a social welfare system than actual expenditure management. We do not lay anyone off. In fact, there's pressure on government to take on more nurses and more teachers. And you are saying we should cut down expenditures. This year, ask Ministry of Education and Ministry of Health. We haven't been able to employ a single trainee. We haven't added any more people on our payroll. So that is an expenditure cut. Are Ghanaians willing to make those sacrifices? That should be, in fact, if we can reduce our compensation budget, which is about 51 billion, by 10%, that 5 billion can fix a number of roads, can pay more than 20 contractors or 50 contractors. So if we reduce our compensation budget by just 10%, we are hovering around 51 billion. That is half of what GRA is collecting this year. So we are using half of the revenues generated to pay salaries and wages. Can we add on? No, so we haven't added on. So that is efficiency. We are reducing expenditure.